Jeff in San Francisco. Hey, Jeff, thanks for watching Free Speech TV. What's on your mind?
I was wondering, a quick question.
Jeff, can you take me off speakerphone? It sounds like you're in the bottom of a well.
Sorry, Tom.
Thank you.
I just want to ask about if you think the American Revolution was because the British banks were afraid of public banking, such in Pennsylvania. And Ben Franklin was big on this. He was called the father of paper money, and how we can return to this system. In a lot of countries have a lot of public banking, and how this could be returned probably first at the state level and eventually at the federal level.
Yeah, for people who don't know what you're talking about, Jeff, public banking is where the bank, instead of being a for-profit corporation that makes money off interest and loans and then distributes that money as profit to its shareholders and its senior executives, the bank instead is owned by a public institution, like a state, typically. North Dakota has a state-owned bank that was opened in, as I recall, 1909. It might have been in the 19-teens. And all of the profits that come from banking, and those profits are substantial. The big banks generate tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars a year in profit. All of those profits are returned to the state, and thus to the taxpayers of the state, in the form of loans. North Dakota's was originally set up to give loans to farmers because the New York banks refused to do so. In the form of loans, in the form of profit statements, profits that go right into the state treasury, things like that. I'm a big fan of public banking, Jeff, and I think that every state should be doing this. If California did this, they'd have enough money to have single-payer health care, just from the profit of taking the money, taking the big bucks away from the New York banks. The New York banks have millions of dollars to spend, billions of dollars to spend on lobbyists, and so far that hasn't happened. But yes, I'm a supporter of public banking. To the issue of the American Revolution, your original question or your original point, I don't think that really was the issue. I think the issue, from the point of view of the British, was that they were viewing us as an extractive colony. That is to say, a colony that, number one, could provide them with cheap raw materials. We grew cotton here. It wasn't growing. Cotton and tobacco. It wasn't growing in Europe at the time. They were having to import cotton from India by and large, and it was cheap coming from here. And they could sell things to us. They passed laws. There were actual laws on the books in the United States, British laws, prior to 1787. There were British laws, or 1883, the end of the Revolutionary War. There were British laws on the books that made it illegal for Americans to manufacture, for example, fine clothing. When George Washington was elected President of the United States, our first president post-Constitution, he wanted to wear an American-made suit to his inauguration. There was only one guy in the entire country who was making fine clothing. His name was Daniel Hinsdale, and he was in Delaware, and he was doing it illegally. And George Washington sent his friend Henry Knox on a horse to Delaware to get his suit. He took his measurements and took them to Daniel Hinsdale. Hinsdale made the suit, and Washington was sworn in wearing a brown suit made in America. For his famous painting, he put on British black, the formal wear. But so that, I think, was the big issue. The Americans wanted to have control. We wanted to get control over our economy back, and the British wanted to maintain control over our economy. Banking would have been secondary or tertiary, as most of the banking that was going on in the United States prior to the American Revolution was British banks. So, Jeff, I understand the argument, but I am skeptical of it.